The wider the base, the higher the peak. This is a phrase popularized by Louis Simmons and later expounded upon by one of his former pupils, Brandon Lilly, with his 365 strong concept, which was based entirely around the idea of quote-unquote everyday strength. So really, the base portion of this particular equation, and it's the same with Louis' phrase, really. Ultimately, your peak is contingent upon your base. Therefore, the base is really the absolute most important part of this formula. And because of that importance, I want to go in depth on this topic today. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to my channel. And if you enjoy content like this, then please consider supporting my work by picking up a training program from my website, www.enkirielitefitness.com. I have over 60 5-star reviews on Google. You can check them out for yourself. And if you do, your gains will thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. So basically, you've got all these really big, uber strong guys all kind of shouting the same message at you. And that is that the hands down most important thing that you can do in the iron game is build yourself a solid, formidable, and resilient base. But I find that there is confusion amongst many newer lifters about what in the hell that actually even means. I was having a conversation with one of my clients recently about this same concept, as he's planning to do a powerlifting competition soon. So naturally, the idea of peaking came up. But it's also been something that he and I have talked about previously, as high-frequency squatting is something that he has dabbled in the past before he even came to me for coaching, and he saw good results with it. So it is a concept that he's been interested in. And for good reason. They were really good results that he managed to get with the high-frequency squatting that he performed. He crushed a 405-pound squat after just a few weeks of Smoloff Jr., coupled with, I believe he told me it was 2 weeks of high-frequency squat work where he worked up to heavy singles immediately following the Smoloff Jr. program. And during that time period of doing heavy singles, he gained something like 40 or 50 pounds on his squat 1-rep max. So it was basically like 50 pounds in total in a month. And honestly, that is not all that uncommon or crazy of a thing to have happen. I have done that sort of thing myself multiple times on multiple occasions. This just in myself, but I've also seen it happen in many others as well when using these same types of protocols or similar protocols over the years. But then my client, he did these heavy singles. He did Smoloff Jr., then he did these heavy singles. He hit this massive PR, and then he stopped the high-frequency work, as you have to do at some point, because it's basically an unsustainable way of training. And then a few short weeks later, his squat had dropped right back down to where it was before he started the Smoloff Jr. program. Now, the very first time that I saw something like this happen, it was many years ago. It was when I was just first getting started with strength training program. I wasn't doing it professionally or anything like that at the time. I was just a guy who lifted. And a friend of mine, he ran Smoloff. So the entire Smoloff squat program, not the Smoloff Jr. program like my client had recently done, but the entire program. So he did that, and his squat, it went from something like 230 pounds or 240 pounds, something paltry like that for a max single, all the way up to a 315-pound single by the end of the Smoloff squat program. And I can still see this kid in my head hitting that 3-plate squat that I honestly didn't think he had a snowball's chance in hell of being able to hit. So it was just these really crazy fucking gains, man. And then the dude, he went back to normal squat training after Smoloff, and so he was doing something like once a week squatting or twice a week squatting, something like that, something that was more sustainable, some tamer levels of volume, tamer levels of intensity for his squat work. And he couldn't squat. It was something like 250 pounds. I think I watched him nail a 315-pound single. And then like 3 or 4 weeks later, I watched him get absolutely stapled by 250 pounds on the first rep of a set that was supposed to be like a 3-rep or a 5-rep set or something like that. Just like 2 or 3 weeks after hitting that 315-pound single. And I am not exaggerating or making this up. Honestly, it is a pretty maddening thing to witness firsthand. So now both of these are examples of really high peaks, right? These guys had a certain baseline level. that they started at, whatever it was. And then they implemented what is essentially a highly specific, extreme, and unsustainable training method in order to reach a PR goal weight that they wanted to lift for whatever reason. And that reason can be whatever you want it to be, man. It can be whatever it is for you. It doesn't have to be anything special or anything specific, just whatever floats your boat, right? Whatever makes your dick hard. And then after hitting that peak and returning back down to earth, as we're all forced to do eventually, and being forced to perform more sustainable training styles, once again, that peak dissipates. And so with these people, their strength level, it dips way back down. Essentially what happens is it goes back to normal. So this is what frequency does. This is what peaking does, or at least what it can do when executed well. And these methods are fun to tinker with and pontificate on, and fun to use to win competitions or hit lifetime goal numbers on certain lifts. But the fact of the matter is, the cold, hard reality of it is that they aren't really methods of training. They are just methods of maximizing specific skill. This is borrowed strength. These guys did not actually get stronger. They didn't actually build muscle or enhance their ability to produce force. They simply became really, really good at learning how to optimally display the force that they could already produce in a specific movement pattern. But they did not get stronger, because if they did actually get stronger, then they would have retained most of, or at least even some of, those gains that they had made, because true strength is an enduring quality. It can last for months and years with little maintenance work once it is built, because the neural and structural changes required by the body to build it are so intensive that once they're completed, the body does not want to revert back to the way it was before, because the organism literally had to evolve on an individual level in order for those changes to occur in the first place. So the peak is an illusion. It is a transient state. It is fleeting. That's not to say that achieving it is easy by any stretch of the imagination, because in reality, it can actually be some of the hardest work that you will ever do. But what I'm saying is, if you are doing it, you better damn well know why you are doing it. You aren't doing it to create gains. You are doing it to create a temporary state of maximal performance, hopefully for a specific reason. So now this leads us to the base. The base, on the other hand, is what can you do today? And what can you do tomorrow? And what can you do the day after that? And the day after that? And the day after that? It is the what are you capable of all the time? What are you capable of at a moment's notice? What are you capable of when you didn't sleep all that great? What are you capable of when you're going through it with your spouse? Or when work is stressful? Or when your dog just died? Or when the sun and the moon and the stars just aren't quite lining up right? And everything in your life is shitty and nothing is going quite right. What are you capable of then? That is your base. It is the everyday. It is the floor that your body considers acceptable to lie on when everything is just kind of going so-so, or maybe even when everything is going kind of shitty. But it is definitely not your peak state. It is absolutely not your ceiling. Now, in my opinion, the base is actually the most important thing of all. The peak is nice. The peak is fun, the peak is cool, but it's really just the cherry on top. The base is the sundae, man. The base is the steak and the potatoes and the veggies, and it is the whole goddamn meal. It is everything. And the peak is an afterthought, because the entire utility and value of the peak is contingent wholly upon the base. The higher you push the floor, then by necessity, the higher the ceiling has to be. If you can make your base what your peak used to be, then your peak will be much, much higher. And the more well-rounded that you can make yourself in this process, the more different types of things you can become strong at, the higher and higher you can keep stacking on top of it. The wider the base, the higher the peak. It is literally a pyramid. If you're good at everything, you will be bad at nothing. That sounds so simple as to almost be meaningless. But when you think about it from this perspective of the base, you realize it actually means everything. If you're only good at low bar squats with a straight bar, then that is all that you're good at. But if you are good at squatting with any implement, to any depth, with any bar positioning, then you're just a fucking good squatter, and you are a good low bar squatter by default. The real difference here is that peak training by its nature is unsustainable. It will lead to burnout and stagnation and inevitably injury if you push it too hard or too far or for too long. It also acclimates your body to a higher workload as its maintenance point. The minimum amount of work required to maintain the gains that you already have becomes higher and higher when you become acclimated to peak training. That is not what you want, because then you simply can't make progress anymore. And trust me, the older and older that you get, you are going to want your maintenance point to be the lowest amount of work possible. You want to be able to do the least amount of work you can do while still having your body retain all of its gains. Because that way, when you really want to make good progress again, all you have to do is increase the workload slightly. And since base building style training is more moderate by nature, then that is an easy place to pick up from and improve upon. This also makes it much more sustainable in general, and as a result, the gains acquired this way are much truer and much more stable as well. You can take time off, you can slack off, you can cut your workload way the fuck down, and your gains will not go anywhere if you have a strong and solid and resilient base. So focus on the base first and foremost. Be smart about your training and approach it with a long-term perspective in mind. Keep training hard, guys.